The opinions expressed on this show do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Return the Jewels. Also, there's explicit language. Hey everyone, welcome to the 11th episode of Return the Jewels. We made it through the 10 episode hump, so thank you for supporting us all the way through on that. We have a website. I gotta work on redesigning it. We gotta revamp what we're doing, and so Fonny and I have really been talking about that, and we'll come out with we'll revamp the merch and everything, and but this is going good because we're starting to find our voice. I think people that have been listening for the last 10 episodes have kind of seen like what we're trying to do is build that guidebook for younger first generation immigrant kids, people that feel marginalized, not necessarily accepted in their environments. We're building a guidebook of people that are professionals in their 30s or whatever, things like that, that can teach you how to like navigate their spheres, dealing with microaggressions, all while being aware of the vestigial effects that colonialism has on all of us, and our identity and culture, and how it really informs our actions, and how we perceive different things that affect us, even if it's not just our actions and there's like a passive element to it. But anyways, today's a very good episode. We have my good friend on. His name is Danish Maqbool. He Pakistani dude, first generation. He grew up in Jersey. He You've seen him on Ramy, and you'll see him on more things depending on when you're watching this thing, or you will have seen him on more things, or you'll be able to look him up and find him on more things. But suffice it to say, dude is doing well, and he's got a great work ethic, and that's one thing I admire about him as a friend. And so we had him on, and we really talked about a lot of things. Danish, he's a working comedian. He's touring. He's going for acting gigs, all the stuff, right? But he had a life previous to this, which was as a gamer and gaming commenter for Major League Gaming. So he was a personality, and he was known within that community and developed relationships. So we talk about that because I keep thinking about like what are we trending towards, what is the nexus going to be, in terms of like entertainment. We have everybody doing so many things virtually, and people just like kind of consume content as if it's like a virtual hangout, or like being in the room, or by conversations by proxy, right? And then there's got to be some sort of entertaining element to it, and why esports is becoming such a big thing, or it has become such a big thing, and marrying the two, comedy and gaming. And I feel like Danish is kind of, and like we've talked about this for a while, him and I, but like he's kind of the perfect nexus for that, because he knows the language of both worlds by now, because he's put in the work, you know. And so that's one thing we kind of get into and talk about. Uh, Obviously, brown dude with a beard, so we talk about a lot of like stigmatization and stuff like that growing up, and how it affects you, and how it affects how you develop, and just like another thing about this trope with uh people that look like me, I guess, is that like we're kind of systematically emasculated. If you like look in literature, look in representations in media, and then even like general consensus, and how like in different conversations and everything, like tone and whatever, that to be argued, sure. But there's a general pattern there, and so we kind of touched on that. And like, what are the solutions to that? Probably overcorrecting in terms of representation, creating the fuckable brown male, essentially, is what we talk about. And so it's like, we talked about that, growing up in a culturally diverse environment. The effect of getting bullied is bullying good, essentially. Um, and watch the episode to find out. And then, we circle back and brought it back to representation, which is like the hammer I nail. Wait, the the drum I beat all the time with the hammer. Okay, this intro is too long. Enjoy the episode. Danish Maqbool. It's a good one. And so here now we have with us my good friend of the podcast, Danish Maqbool. Did I say that right?
Yeah, yo, what up?
What up? What up? And I know you met Fani before on like a different Zoom. This is Fani Danish.
What's up,
What's up,
man?
man?
Nice to see you again.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. What's good? How y'all living?
Good, man. I'm liking the
Fi-
beard. Mine's a little scraggly. Did you get yours done somewhere, or is that just like how it grew in?
This was two months. I think I'm about to go on another 2 months
Yeah,
after this. You know,
just straight beard
like
growth.
yeah, straight beard growth, straight hair growth, because we locking down again. So it's like
I know, but I
I,
know you hit me up. You want like headshots, so like I don't know how we're gonna deal with that. Are you gonna get like a fancy
I
trim?
think you could do it with this scraggly look. You know,
Hmm.
people should be able to accept this is how I look anyway.
Yeah, I mean, this is how my self tapes are gonna look because I can't go to a barber. Well, I'm not, people are going to barbers.
No, I'm gonna chill for a little while.
Yeah. No,
I did I did stand up last night just because I stopped by my boy's show
yeah.
and they threw me
Person
up.
in real life or on the Zoom?
No, in real life, and I was like, man, I don't even feel comfortable doing this right now. You
Really?
know, I just feel like COVID wild out here again, man.
Yeah.
So
Everyone had on their jackets too. Was the weather fine?
yeah, it's actually beautiful right now.
Um,
I'm not gonna lie.
you can't just be.
Yeah, it's actually perfect weather to do comedy outside. But you know, COVID is violent, so I have my mixed feelings about it.
Isn't it raining and shit? You do a lot of comedy out in the rain? That's just kind of funny.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a tense situation or this and that, but yeah, man, that this is
Oh, there's like a couple of shows that got rained out and stuff, and they were like people posting videos of them and doing performing in the rain and stuff. I mean, it's been pretty wild. I don't think it's ever been like this before for comedy, where they've just been doing outdoor shows, and that's become the norm.
I mean, comedians will really perform anywhere. To be honest, that's the gig. It's like even I think the biggest comedians in the world would do park shows. I would not be surprised if I walked by a park.
I mean, I can say for sure that they have because
Yeah, but like
they have.
if Seinfeld was doing a spot at the park show, it wouldn't be like I wouldn't be like, yo, that's crazy. I'd be like, yeah, he's a comedian. You know, like he just trying to get on
do you
stage.
think, do you think Jerry Seinfeld would do a park show, even if like let's say quarantine was in? I feel like he would.
I would hope so if he was at a level where he couldn't get time somewhere else in like an established way. I
I
think he
still,
would.
I still feel like they're probably filling up clubs just for him, making people
Yeah,
afterwards.
I would think that he would do whatever, man. I think that's what comedians got to do right now. They're just doing whatever they got to do to just keep shit going.
Yo, yeah, dude. I mean, like, I don't know if many people know this outside of like the comedy community, but like the comedy community itself is like a little petty. Like people are a little petty, and so it's like it's been kind of cool to see like the different strains of pettiness that develop with forced isolation, forced massive isolation, and so it's
Yeah,
like one thing, one level, one type of pettiness I notice is like comedians are shifting to doing a lot of Zoom stuff. And now that they're throwing a lot of shade to comedians that do outdoor park shows but only if the park shows are not like popular enough, right? Like if it's a small park show, then they'll be like, "Why'd you risk your life for it?" But if it's like a good lineup and a great show, they'll be like, "Oh, okay, that's cool. I understand you got to eat."
Yeah, I mean, to me, yeah, comedians are very judgmental. First of all, that's the problem. That's the job, is to put judgment on things. So,
You mix the judgmental attitude
with the facts,
with the
like
Drew Dunning
so.
effect.
So first of all, you already said they bored at home, so they got nothing else to do but to make jokes about something. So obviously, some are gonna make jokes about this, right?
I mean, have we
And
not gotten value? We've gotten value, right? Like as a whole,
oh,
society
bro,
wise, from the Zoom shows and everything. Like just like
yeah, I think
consumers.
so. Me and you have had conversations about you being on a Zoom, and you were like, "That was fun. We had a great time one night. Remember that fun house show? That was like." And it's like, bro, that one amongst 180 pretty dreary fucking days, right? So, if you have bright spots amongst the 180, however you got to get them, if one day it's a Zoom show, if one day it's opening your Xbox, if one day is meeting your cousin, whatever it is, you got to like take those spots. So, yeah, Zoom shows have their place. Are they everything? No. That's the extremist in America's extreme, bro. So
No,
it's like
I think
starts doing Zoom shows. Everybody now it's we only got to do Zoom shows. It's not the case.
I think that taps into like a different type of mentality, right? I feel like there are two camps, right? There's like the camp that is like an entitlement camp, in that like this is the way things are or the way things were, right? And then there's also like a camp that's like, okay, I'm adapting. And and I think that those two different camps are tied into like a spectrum of ego. So it's like if you're really entitled or whatever and you have a real like ego about like let's say comedy, right? If you're a professional working comedian and you got a real ego about it, a time like quarantine or something can be real detrimental potentially. If you're unwilling to, like, in your eyes, I guess, sell your image to do Zoom shows or whatever. But then I guess if you're coming from the other aspect of it where you've worked to kill your ego, I think you can see things like Zoom shows and things like outdoor park shows and stuff like that as opportunities to do something unique and creative that who knows where like the chips may fall.
Yeah, I mean, no, you're just you're working on your act, right? That's all you're trying to do.
Oh wait, me working on my act trying
No,
to make these
no,
connections
me,
right now?
me. I'm saying. That's all
It was a
conversation
bit of
trying
a
to do.
stretch. Yeah.
And so it's like, yo, however you got to get there, bro. It's like, people shouldn't hate on anybody doing any work, you know? Like, do I think it's a little weird that, you know, COVID is out here hard and people are doing indoor shows? Yeah, I do, but we watch the NFL every Sunday. We're all complicit, Like, so look, man, we all trying to move forward. Nobody wants this thing to be around. I think the last thing we gotta do along the way is make judgment. You know, it's like you live your life. I've decided I got away with a lot this year. I
Yeah.
got married indoors, 130 people, like a month and a half ago. So and nobody got COVID. So I got away with a lot. I don't need to push it no more.
True.
I'm
I mean,
cool.
I guess you were a little smart about it and people didn't get COVID.
Yeah, we were smart about it. Well, we gave masks to everybody, and we got everybody to get tested beforehand. As much as smart as you can be about something like that,
Yeah.
we were. But you know, I'm like, bro, I got on stage 100 times this year. You good? You could shut it down for the year.
A
You
hundred
know?
times before March.
No, even during quarantine with all those park shows, and then I
Park
was
shows.
touring with Akash, and it's like Yeah, I was getting on stage a lot. I'm like, bro, you wildin', and shit is okay. I mean, I would always be careful everywhere I
Right.
went. I was always the most anal out of everybody. Like we would go to restaurants and they'd be like, "Yo, let's just sit in." I'll be like, "Nah, I'm gonna just sit outside," and they would sit outside with me. You know?
Yeah, I mean, you were able to develop new material. I saw that during this whole time.
Yeah, and that was really dope for me, man. I grew as a comedian a lot, and
Yeah,
so
Do you think
it's
that has something to do with you being in these Zoom shows? Like that's something I always wondered. Like when you're out performing in the real world, you bring yourself out into like the outer environment. But with the Zoom thing, you're in your own inner element. Do you get like some more like confidence from that? Like does that play into your like comedy somehow? Like do you think
I
it's
don't
an
know.
advantage or a disadvantage?
I don't know. I don't know what makes. I don't have enough data. What makes you funny, or is it laziness, or like not being, or being uncomfortable? You know, that's basically what you're like. Because if I'm at home, I'm lazy, and if I'm out somewhere and there's a show, usually I'm pretty uncomfortable. You know, and that's like. So I don't know. I think you could figure out a way to bring out something through both places,
Do you
right? And
do you think there's a line? Have you been feeling a line? Okay, forget about the professional comedy thing, right? Have you just been feeling a line being blurred in your professional and personal life in that like we're doing all these Zooms, we're doing all these FaceTimes and like doing comedy or performing or even speaking with a point on any sort of platform, you have to be on, and there is a marked difference between being on and being relaxed or normal, right? So like
yeah,
being on, have you found a way to delineate or like turn it off and on? And are you good at that? Or is that a struggle right now with the quarantine stuff?
I mean, I I try to be as me as possible all the time. Off stage, on stage. I try not to switch it up. Because it makes things easier. That trying to be one thing one time and another thing at different times could be very exhausting. At least to me, that's how it seems.
Yeah.
So just kind of figuring out, because I've been through that. When you're coming up in comedy, you're not you on stage yet, and so you're trying to figure it out. Um, I think I'm getting closer to that. So that, it would be exhausting. So it's like, no, I try to keep it one tone, and that keeps it pretty clear on what I'm thinking, what my motivations are on and off stage. They're usually the same. So it's like
Do you apply
that.
this to life?
Yeah, of course, bro. This has changed my life, man. Like applying this kind of thing where it's like you have one set of principles across the board. They
Yeah.
don't change for any game, no matter what game you're in, no matter who you're around.
Speaking of, so before you ever did comedy, I know we talked about this. You were a gamer and a gaming commenter in the esports world before
Yeah, yeah,
sports what is what it is now. So it was like kind of like at the rumblings of it becoming a big industry, right? You were a professional commenter and gamer in that world, but you quit and pursued comedy,
yeah.
right? Why? Why?
Um, I mean, there was a bunch of reasons, you know. Uh,
Looking back,
yeah, there's a bunch of reasons that would actually pertain to why this podcast exists, right?
let us know.
So one thing is, first thing foremost was I fell out of passion with gaming, right? Like gaming I game all the time now. I got the new Xbox. I love gaming. I gamed for 3 hours last night, but it's not the same as it used to be. And I didn't want to make it an all day thing. I just felt like my life was being wasted. I felt like there was more out there in the world than just gaming all day, you
Yeah.
know. And so that was really the first thing, okay? But the second thing, and I'm actually grateful now looking back that this happened, but there was just, despite me having, guys, look at me. I'm unconventional. We're doing this podcast. I'm outside hitting a bogue on the side of my house with a coffee in my hand. I move the way I
Right.
move.
You look like you're on a construction site.
Yeah. Okay. So already, like, yes, it does look like I'm building houses. Okay.
You're like the main contractor.
Yeah. Yeah. It looks like I'm talking to you about housing development. And so I get it,
Yeah.
right? I'm not for everybody, but through that, there was, even in gaming, the commentating, there was a lot of promise,
Yeah.
right? Like I showed a lot of. I wasn't the best commentator, but I did show a lot of skill. And if they had cultivated that properly, right, the way they did with other young talent, then I would have gone pretty far with them,
Yeah.
right? And every time I got replaced, I always got replaced by a white dude named, and these are all my boys, so it's no
Right.
love lost, right? But it would be like a Rich, a John, a Scott, like it was all
Right. It's
white
not their
dudes, right?
fault. It's not
Yeah,
their fault.
no,
But
it's not their fault,
you
bro. And
notice
these
the
were,
pattern.
and Chris, yeah, it would be
Right.
those guys that would like, and I love those guys. I still have good relationships with all those guys.
Right.
Like it's not on them. It's just like what the market. At the end of the day, these guys are trying to build something for a market, and what would be like better for the market. And then on top of that, I was like not as responsible as I should have been. I was younger than everybody. I was literally the youngest kid at the company for a long time, you know? So I just didn't have the level of professionalism needed
Right.
for the job, first of all, you
Right.
know?
And I know that having something so, I guess, kind of high profile like that very young, and then switching it up, because this goes back to like the conversations that you and I have personally had in like the last however couple of years or whatever, just about, so when you got to switch it up, having had used to have like this high profile stuff, right, and not necessarily performing at the level of professionalism you expect of yourself now, and then now trying to get back into a high profile world, but you have these tools of knowing how to be professional or how to carry yourself in a professional way. And so there's that disconnect, right? There's the thing that you used to have, but you navigated it like dog shit. And now there's the thing that you want to get because you're ready to navigate it in the right way. And there's always that fucking thought of just like, well, will I ever get this? Versus the thought of like, of course I'm going to get this because I'm doing things right. So the fight between those two thoughts, how bad is that with you?
I'm pretty good at that. Um, my move into comedy was very calculated.
Yeah.
It was just very calculated. I always wanted to do it. At one point, I told myself I'm gonna do it at 30 because I would always watch comedians on stage and they would always be in their 30s.
Yeah.
So I was like, you don't even need to do this till later. And little did I know, you needed the 8 years before to even get
So
to
you
a spot at
you
30.
procrastinated on your dream?
Yeah, that was my original thing, and because I was helping my boy rap,
Yeah.
and he did it, he just stopped. And then I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna pursue my shit at 23. And I had come to this like conclusion where I like was in the studio all the time. I was working at this gaming place every day, right? My life was dope, man. Like on paper, that's a dope. And I had a lot of fun. I learned a lot, right? But nothing has felt as good as comedy. Stand up, particularly, has been really, really fun, and I love it. And so I even still love it. I mean, I know there's a lot of comedians that are like, the cool thing is to not love it, but
Mm.
I don't know. I have a great time doing stand up. And so, like, I pick the thing. I've seen what it takes to be the best.
Yeah,
That I've seen close up.
yeah,
My closest friends in gaming are now some of the biggest stars in gaming.
yeah,
So I know intimately what mindset it takes for you to get there. And it takes like something where you'll never stop trying to get better, ever, ever, no matter what,
yeah.
right? And you want to go so hard, you want to be the best. That's what it takes. So when I realized I don't have that for gaming, but I feel like I have that for stand up. I want to be so good. I just want to keep getting better. I just, like I never even imagined I would be this good. So now I'm like, oh, this is great. I want to keep getting better at this. So I don't go through it much. I have pretty much a level head about this stuff, especially by this point. Maybe I was going through it when I was first getting in. It was really rough the first few years. But once you make it through that, it gets a lot better, man. It gets a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that, and just being around a lot of different comedians at different levels, you see not just the quality of life improve, but you see like clarity of mind sometimes, and you can definitely see like stark differences in people at different stages. Now, I bring all of this stuff up because when we met, it was at a popular comedy show, and I had my Polaroid camera, and I was like, okay, brown dude with another brown dude with a beard, and we hung out and talked, and I think we talked about like representation and the aims of representation and all of that, and we talked about how like brown men are kind of systematically emasculated, in terms of how we're perceived and stuff. And we're both we're emasculated, and in a way that makes us non-threatening, and because we're non-threatening, we get to be model minorities. So like because of that, like we talked about this, and it's like, how do you deprogram that myth? And it's about having overcorrecting and having more representation of fuckable brown males. We talked about that more and more, and it's like how you have to really have confidence in all your delivery and everything, because that's what it is, right? Because the more representation we have of us, where it's like the dude from Big Bang Theory that's unable to talk to girls, that's what's going to drive the global perception of us. Because if we've seen anything in the last few years, it's that people model their behavior and perceptions based off of, however things are curated for them. So, like, that being the case, and comedy being a very specific animal in which your performance is really you trafficking in confidence, right? Because of the way we are now globally, and everybody has conversations digitally. People don't meet each other in person so much. People don't talk on the phone as much as they text, right? So because of that, we will look at someone like a comedian who's able to get on a stage and confidently speak an opinion, deliver an opinion without having to like kowtow and genuflect or anything. And then we see that confidence and we're attracted to that confidence. So having to be a stand-up comedian means that you have to, even if you don't have it personally, you have to portray to the world this wealth of self-confidence and general confidence in your opinion and opinion making, right? And so because of that, and because you've had the gaming, and in the gaming world, a lot of people, it's the merit of your reactions and your skills in the gaming and whatever. It's not so much about how good you are at talking on screen or how good you are at talking to other people. Because the most famous gamer can be someone who's a complete recluse that never speaks.
No, that's not true.
You don't know?
No, man, no. Like in gaming, bro, you go back. Uh, there was this guy. Like streamers are personalities.
Yeah.
Personality survives anywhere, right? Me and my boy Caesar, we would like go hard. There's videos of us 15 years ago at my house with like a bunch of other gamers, you know, and we would rap battle at events. There's videos of us 10 years ago rap battling, with hundreds of kids watching at the events after hours at like midnight. Everybody would get together in front of the hotel and there'd be rap battles. Cops have pulled up. I was like leading this whole thing
Sorry,
for
officers. We're
years.
gamers. We're rapping.
Yeah, it was just like because these kids all felt the same way. Usually what is true, man, is when you're in a thing and you're feeling something, other people who are in that thing are also feeling that thing.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're in gaming and you're feeling like, man, I'm a cool kid who's like more than a video game player, let's like fucking smoke weed and rap, And then there's probably other kids like, yo, I'm into, and then there's kids that are just like fans of that are like, yo, I would sit and watch that. So then there would be hundreds of kids that would get together, and it's like
And this is all
personalities
this is
always
all
rose.
before
See,
this is all before the world of streaming became big and everyone has
yeah, and now Caesar
personality.
is one of the biggest streamers in the world. People will watch him play literally any game,
Yeah.
right? So, and he's very good at games, but he's like good at games to the point where I was good at games, like
Yeah.
better than average, but definitely borderline professional for sure, but like not the best at all.
Right.
There's 100 people better to 1,000 people better than him at every game.
And
You
I
know,
know so we talk about this all the time. It's like so the thing that delineates him is that I don't want to say just a performance aspect, but like the way I was thinking about it, it's like it's a virtual hangout aspect or a virtual by proxy hangout, right? So it's like if you're in the gaming streaming world, right, you essentially are presenting yourself as a character that's a cool hang, that's a virtual person hanging out in the living room with you playing this game that you're watching, right? Because that's like kind of the type of attention that captures, especially in a lot of young kids and a lot that's why. And then with comedy, you're literally training to fill airspace, right? With humor and with like in empty rooms, and you train in a way to win over people in crowds, right? And so even people that you can't see, like you need to be able to make thoughts humorous or at least make connections and make callbacks and stuff in riffing and all this stuff. So it's like I know you and I talk about this all the time, and I think you specifically you are like the perfect nexus of gaming and comedy in that because I think that that's probably where like the trends and the world is going to go, right? Because esports is becoming a huge thing. You see all these different agencies and everybody, they're going to represent esports people just with the same zeal as they would movie stars, talent agents and whatever, or entertainment lawyers, because the money's there, right? And with comedians, it's all about being like on existing platforms or making your own platforms, but humor is itself something that can translate into any industry or anything. So it's like having a comedian who's versed in the language of gaming, there's got to be some sort of like opening up. There's got to be some sort of marriage of those worlds in how the world and how our world is going and being like more quarantined and isolated and everything. It's like gaming's going to win.
yeah. I
Gaming's
mean,
going to win.
bro, I've obviously as you're telling me you're the perfect nexus. I already know that, but it took you saying that now because now I finally established myself somewhat
I said it
in
two
the
years ago too.
yeah, but in the comedy world, it's taken me time to
Yeah.
establish myself as a legitimate professional comedian in everyone's eyes, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
a young kid. It takes time to do that, bro. I don't have no manager. I've never been on TV. I had a few lines in a TV show. That's it, right? And so I'm still very much on the grind. And so
right.
I had a plan of, you know, put that gaming shit to the side until you establish yourself as some real shit in comedy, and then try to marry the two, you know, in some way. And we're figuring it out. And
Yeah,
it's
we're
like,
figuring it out.
and all the gamers are hitting me up, waiting, and they show love. I Ninja, Nate, all those big ass gamers, they all show love. I seen them like 2, 3 years ago in person. They showed so much love. They were like, "Bro, we're so happy about the comedy," all that stuff, right? So
Yeah,
they're watching. So of course they'll try to put on, but you got to go do some dope shit for them to want it. Because then it's like, if you do some really cool in comedy, the gamers will be like, man, that's one of us. That I can do that. So I'm a retweet that, right? I'm
right.
a push that out. You don't even have to say anything. You don't even have
Yeah.
to ask them to do that, right?
Right. No, I
Because
mean
that,
it's a form of representation.
yeah, it's yeah. All you're doing is boosting their net worth. That's
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah, 'cause,
So
I mean, there's still that sense of not evil tribalism, but tribalism. You know.
I don't even have to ask, bro. I just have to do. That's all it is. So that's why I haven't married the two and why I haven't streamed. You know, bro, somebody offered me 6 figures when I left MLG to start streaming, and I said no. You know, if I said no then, I'm not gonna start now. you know,
That's good.
yeah,
That's a good thought. How old were you when you got that offer?
23.
23. Okay. So that's in line with a lot of things we do here on the podcast because we're like, we talk about, and we haven't really done that yet on this interview. Specifically, was like, talk about microaggressions and transgressions and shit like that, and trying to relate it to the goals you had with your younger self and how you talk to your younger self now, because we want to create like a patch together guidebook for younger brown kids that don't necessarily understand how things would pan out after college or however, whatever the path that they have going on. So I want to, before getting into that discussion, I wanted to hit you with a segment that I think we talked about earlier in the prep. Um, so this is called tokenized or fetishized. And in this segment, I'm going to ask you for a personal anecdote that you have where in a situation you were either tokenized or you were fetishized, and maybe you can explain to us what either of those mean, or if there's a difference between the two, or maybe if I'm framing it in a wrong way. But if you can delineate between the two and tell us about one experience in which either of the two or both of them happened to you, that's what we like to hear. When you're a kid, maybe in gaming.
Yeah, I mean, you're always like tokenized as a. I mean, I grew up in a town that is very multicultural.
Yeah.
Okay, so multicultural being like lot of lot of basically strong representation in every way. Hispanics, black people, white people were strong here, and brown people were just making their way here in the 80s. You know, the 80s, they were just starting to take over
Right.
New Jersey. And so growing up in the 90s, we were the only brown people in this particular town at the time, us and like 10 other people, right? So that's not a lot in a town of 30,000 people, right? Now it's probably a few thousand, especially I think, and they're all in my neighborhood, okay? And it's great, right?
Yeah.
It's amazing. I look around now and I feel like some sort of like pride. I'm like walking around and I'm like, man, like we started this shit, yo. Like we were the
Yeah.
first brown people to move in, us and Priya down the block, and like, and so back in the day, people, and there was other brown kids. There was this kid Monty, who was I don't know what he was, but he wasn't what he would say he was. He was one of those brown kids that was saying he was Spanish, right?
Yeah,
You
he's code
remember? You
switching.
remember those kids?
Yeah, no, I know.
Yeah, he was one of those, and this guy was like always such an asshole, like a year older or something, and
Because he hated himself, man.
yeah, he hated himself, and he like, he dressed like pretty cool. I would be like, man, like, but also like kind of like OD'd on the dressing, so you would be like, uh, you know. And so you'd be like, yo, you have fly shivers, you don't know how to wear it. And
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 now he's
then
a famous rapper named. Well, I'm not gonna. Never mind.
yeah, and then so then I don't know. I remember like one time he was like making fun of me for eating naan, and so I had him come in, and I hated this guy, right? But I had him come in my house and eat it like he doesn't eat it every night at his own house, and he pretended that he didn't. Like I'm like, and then he would like tell the kids on the block he like made fun of the food after he like enjoyed it in the house. And I was like, man, like you fucking played me, man. And like, there was it was both of a lot of that was happening to both. It was that was interesting because you saw two brown kids
Yeah,
on both sides of it, right? In one situation.
right. One person, he was adapting to a world in which that kind of thing is heavily stigmatized, and it's not something to be proud of, right? You're whatever.
Yeah, because it wasn't cool back then,
Well, it
bro. Like,
absolutely wasn't cool. No.
yeah, so it wasn't cool to just like be different, but I kind of owned it
Yeah.
because I don't know. I just had a lot of confidence always, man. I always did. You know, that was one thing that I think I got it from my dad. My dad has mad confidence, so
What do you say to the
you know.
people, maybe kids that are in this situation that don't have confidence? How do you fake confidence, or how do you have confidence in that kind of? And I know it's not really so much of a concern now because like brown stuff is like cool because all the white girls are making huge industries out of it. So like I'm sure I feel like brown kids in school are cool, or their ethnic things are cool. But like, what would you say to yeah, like a kid that wasn't so confident in their identity and being stigmatized for being different, right? How could you
I
tell them to
mean,
be confident?
knowledge is power, straight up.
Okay.
That's how I always felt. I was like, if you could just be smarter than if you read, if you enjoy, if you, and I love that stuff. I enjoyed reading as a kid. I was so thankful. I don't read much now. Maybe 10 books a year, 5 books a year, depending on the year. But I used to read a lot as a kid, and I was really thankful, dude. In fifth grade, the guy is like still one of my closest friends to this day, right? In fifth grade, I got into a fight with the most popular kid in school, Kofi Genfi, because I said something about his mom, right? And he punched me. We were like arguing, right? It was like kids were, and I knew I was gonna get my ass beat. It was fucking Kofi was like a big dude too. He's 6'4". Now I'm also 6'4", so it was even. So once it was even, I was like, oh, I can't fight. So I'm like, okay. So then he
You're
said,
not 6'4". You're
yeah,
6'4".
yeah, yeah, I don't wear it well. Kofi wore it well. So that was the difference. And then, so even as kids, and so he punched me in the face and he gave me a bloody nose,
Damn.
and I didn't tell. you know. And through the years, I could tell he respected that. But I didn't tell on him. And then in seventh grade or eighth grade, he asked me a question one time about the homework, and I didn't help him. But then I helped him after class. He like tried to get my homework, you know, and I was like, nah, nah. But I was like, I'll help you. I'll help you though.
Not for doing what you did.
Yeah, yeah. No, not even for that. I just wasn't going to like. He was trying to straight up take my homework,
Oh,
and be like, "Yo, look, you show it to him. Hand me your homework, and then I'll show it to him." I was like, "No, no, no." Right. So then,
does that happen to you a lot? Did that happen to you a lot growing up? That happened to me a
well,
lot. Like,
it did happen, right? And because I was like just good at math, just like all
yeah,
brown kids, right? And most brown kids, I feel bad for the brown kids who aren't good at math because they really gotta like fuck deal with that.
dude, I love.
So yeah, me too. So then, he would like through the years he started to like fuck with me, and then we became best friends, man. We just became best friends, and then I was best friends with the most popular kid in school because I was, we got to like know each other, and he was really smart, and I like fucked with him, and then later on, I would get my tests from him. I would like cheat off of him in other grades, in the later grades. When I was fucking off, he started taking school seriously.
Oh, okay, so that
So
works. It's good. It's like karma.
yeah, it worked out, and it kind of like saved my childhood,
Hmm.
right? Like my childhood was in danger going through that school, being alone. It could have been a lot worse. I got bullied a lot for
Yeah.
sure, but it
What do they call
could
you?
have been everything, bro. Terrorist was big.
Yeah.
That was hard. They would go hard on terrorists.
Yeah.
Like
They love
terrorists,
that
what
one.
they would go hard to the point when I was gaming. One of my team names that got like top 16 at an MLG event was called D-Max Terrorist. That's like what it was called.
There was so much commitment to such a hacky thing. You gotta admire it.
Yeah, that shit went hard from 2001 to 2008. Terrorist was like
So this
going
is
hard.
all before like Gamergate too.
Yeah, yeah.
Man, before like gaming showed its vile incel underside that those guys shifted into just becoming the alt right instead.
Hmm. So I guess, yeah, I could have been tokenized more. I probably was, in terms of like people would look to me to get the math homework in certain, you know, and fetishized. No, I never really allowed myself to be. I would I would go in the right circles. Maybe in yeah, 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 I was tokenized. There was one event in Dallas at MLG. I was working there, and we were at the hotel, and the fire alarm goes off. And I go and I try to wake up one of the guys working there. I'm like, yo, we gotta go, we gotta go. He's not waking up because he's like, this guy's not serious. Right. So I go downstairs, everybody's outside. And they were like, there was like a bomb scare. So then everybody, and this is all the MLG, is like, yo, D-Mac, you did this? Yo, D-Mac, you did this? Yo, from the top to the bottom, from the like top people who work there to the fucking people who were attending the event. We're talking thousands of kids, right? And
It's
I
like
was
they
like,
pass around one memo with one joke every week, and they're like, "You guys have to say this to one brown
yeah,
person every week."
and I owned it. You know,
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I did it. And I was like, I was just like playing, and it was, yeah, you You were like, this is not right. This is not, you
Yeah.
know.
We used to make a game with my friends in high school, all my white friends in high school, about like how often I would get randomly security checked because it was just like it would happen even in front of them, and it's like, it's not random.
Yeah.
Like we'd make jokes about the word being random, and it's like, it's not.
Yeah. If anything, it always kind of gave me perspective, and that's why I kind of aligned myself with the black community because, like, it always gave me perspective on the things they would have to go through on like a deeper basis. You know, like they got to go through that all time. We had like a moment in time, and I think that moment is still here and it exists, but it's you know, I it's changing, I hope, but it's not as also as systematic as it is with the black community at all. So it's like it does give you a window into their life. Like being at the airport gives you a window of what it's like to just be outside as a black person, you know? And so uh that that is not something that I wish to have, but I also am thankful to have it because I'm like I feel more understanding of their plight now, you know?
The more that we get racially profiled and fucked with, the closer we get to intersectionality.
Yeah, I think so. As fucked up as that is, and as fucked up as that sounds, it just gives you more empathy, and you're like, you know, that's why even with everything that happened this year, and just even like a lot of the other ones that would hit you in the past years, they would really affect you. You'd be like, damn, this didn't affect me as much as it should have back in the day, and now it does. Because you do align yourself with them, and that's why it affects you. Because it's like, oh, this could uh, happen to one of my friends, or even somebody like me
Right.
who has, right? So,
Right. Being choosing or being apathetic is a privilege in that even if it's not an active choice, the omission itself is a passive choice. It's a choice.
yeah,
Yes.
for sure.
Yeah.
That's yes. And so it's like, yeah, you can. We're still lucky where we have like a little bit of choice, you know. So I
It's a
look at our
privilege that we
experience.
have a little bit of choice.
Yeah. So I look at our experience as a little bit different, and so I always am that guy that's like, well, there's starving children in the world, like I always look at life like that. It just helps you go through life a lot easier, and so I never felt too bad about what was going on, you know, and how I was being treated because at the end of the day, I still considered my life super privileged, right? Like I remember when I would get like Pokemon cards and I would get like the PlayStation and the video games, and
Tamagotchis.
yeah, and I would be like, dude, like kids don't all get this shit.
I saw there's something Fani and I were looking at. It was like some video where some guy was like, "Oh, you always compare yourself to the best people. Have you ever tried comparing yourself to someone shittier?" And I remember like I used to use that kind of thought to like get through, like after law school, I didn't have any work or whatever. It was like I did not feel confident about my own future and self. So I'd use the thought of like, well, I have all my limbs. I don't have any dependents. I have no alcohol,
Yeah,
anything like that to pay. You know, I'm not really like, so there
and how'd that work for you?
are well, to be seen, but
Yeah,
at least it wasn't as heavy as it could be.
yeah.
Like
I think it's the right way to look at shit, bro.
fucking asking how'd that work for you? Come on, man.
Well, no, I was asking for real. Like,
No, yeah,
how do?
for real, it's a thought I go to a lot because it's like think about people who have it worse than you, right? Like there are people that are packed in the goddamn slums. There are people that are packed in mass graves. Like their lives, it's like, oh, all this shit can come to an abrupt end. You can be abducted. by authority or whoever, but like, you can be disappeared. Everything can be horrible in a snap. So like, you don't have it too bad. Like, you,
Yeah, that's basically how I try to live life.
someone detains you for a few hours at the border, violates you, you don't have it too bad comparatively. But the thought process of having to use something like that to cope, and absolutely shredding
Yeah,
any sense of entitlement, right? So, and then it's like you start to have these thoughts later on in life where it's like, am I not entitled to be entitled, at least, or to feel entitled a little bit? Right? Like, I see some of my peers and whatever, they feel entitled to all of these experiences, right? The things that they talk about with you come from a place of selfishness. And it's just like, can I not get to be that self-absorbed sometimes because I have to feel like, oh, well, I got to compare my situation, I don't have it as bad. It's like, can I not be that, like, is and I'm not talking about me specifically. I'm talking about, like, growing up, like, first generation, being a minority, right? Like,
well,
having
I
that
think
space to just be like,
you're you're describing what it's like to be white in America. You know, where you don't have to have any of those. And I hope that maybe our children or our children's children will not have to deal with that. But unfortunately, we grew up in a time, or fortunately, we grew up in a time where we still have empathy. Again, I just did the same thing there with that sentence, right? Of like, look at it the other way. Fortunately, we still have empathy. Fortunately, I still feel like I got a connection to being human, and fortunately, I don't feel like I'm owed this. Because I look at that, uh, and it's not all white people. Obviously, when you're talking about white people, you're talking about a certain, you know,
yeah, not
kind of.
necessarily that you're entitled to wealth, you're entitled, but getting the benefit of the doubt in social situations or whatever. Like, I know that me going into situations just by nature of how I look, like, I know that I'm not always extended the benefit of the doubt, or people may view my intentions as being necessarily nefarious
But
or
it's
having an
also
ulterior
flipping
motive.
though. Now, white people got to be careful in social
Right?
situations. It's different now.
It's
We
getting
got to
to
be
be different. It's getting to be different.
yeah, yeah. We got to be less careful in social situations than a white person right now. Which is, this is the first time I remember that.
That's a good point. I mean, that's true. The fact that, like, I know growing up that I could always have ownership of any sort of mysticism or anything, even if I'm making it up. Like, you know, white people would always ask me how to meditate when I'm like a 12-year-old, 13-year-old kid, and I don't know this stuff, but like,
Really? At
yeah,
12 or
yeah,
13?
yeah, yeah, all in
That's
school.
wild.
All in school. No, like, what I would do for like a few years. But I'm also growing up in Mississippi, right? So like, yeah, classmates and people would ask me, and like older students and all this, like, ask me how to meditate. And you know what I would do? I would think about that movie Beverly Hills Ninja with Chris Farley, and when he would meditate, he would float up to like this other realm, and then Robin Shue was there, and I was just like, I would describe that to these 12, 13-year-old white kids that were asking me. I was like, well, really, when you meditate, you feel your body go into this cloud state, and you should be able to see other clouds, but you got to sit like this. And they'd buy that, eat it up. They'd eat it up like every single time, and be like, "Love, I can't meditate. Like, why? Like, I've been trying. I can't see the clouds."
So
And I was
funny.
like, "It's like you got to let your mind grow." Yeah, so that just
Wow.
makes me right. That makes me think that, like, people are dumb, and like, especially in the realm of spirituality, because like, even when we talk and think about yoga, and it's like, these people that have these yoga studios here, they're like, yeah, I went to India and got certified. Well, it's probably just some Indian dude named Raj that you went to in India. It could be like, is there not the possibility that some dudes got together in India and made like a yoga certification studio and it was like, hey, do these things. and you
Yeah, yeah. There are 1.6 billion. There could be some frauds. You
right,
know?
right. They're just like a group of, like all the outsourcing people. They're like, okay, well, we figured out Google metrics, so we'll just create a yoga certification studio and churn out these teachers on the weekend. So, but it's just like the fact that there really exists no proper filter or radar for expertise versus non-expertise if the person packaging the expertise can do it with such confidence, you know. And I think that's a huge problem we have. Like people don't have a bullshit radar that extends beyond someone confidently pitching you something, right? No one's asking a follow-up question because they don't think to.
I think it's less of a problem now than in the 90s.
Really?
Yeah, back in the day, somebody tell you something, you're like,
Bro,
all right.
we're in a global world of strongmen fascists. That's
Yeah, but
literally
if
that's the
if
operating logic.
if you're smart, you can fact check everything yourself
Right.
before making a purchase today,
Yeah, but
right?
some people's parents are some of the smartest, intelligent people, and they still get wrapped up in this garbage propaganda, and you
Yeah,
see that,
okay, but the consumer has never been more aware ever of what they're consuming.
or has the
So
consumer never had so much more information ever?
that too, right? But they're also, if you're intelligent enough, just which is just being average, right? Which is just where I'm at. Thank God, right?
Yeah.
You can make conscious decisions, and most of the time you'll be right. You'll miss on some, right?
Yeah.
You'll align yourself incorrectly sometimes, but most of the time you'll be correct, and that's okay. You know?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, the what is it? The moral arc of the universe towards justice or whatever. So it's like if you make decisions consistent with whatever your personal axioms are, if they are consistent, I guess you're gonna be right either way, more or less.
Yeah, you just have to be consistent. Yeah, just be one person. That's the key.
Which is a callback to the thing we talked about at the beginning of this interview
Yeah,
with being consistent on and off stage, and that how that may not necessarily be the way, but it is a way to declutter any sort of extraneous noise, and if you can just be consistent, you don't have to necessarily worry about managing a bunch of spinning plates. And so, that being said, that and the gaming and comedy thing and finding the marriage between that, but really all of this wanting to drive home the point of, like, what we're talking about is confidence and ego and the balance of that, and how innate in us and how we grew up, right? And how we were treated in growing up, and we got to now overcorrect in our confidence and create these portrayals of confident characters, confident people in our profession or whatever, so that younger brown kids can see confident people and then develop their own nuances, you know, and their
yeah,
own nuances for representation. They're not necessarily always going to be typecast as one way, which is the thing that we have to worry about in our generation because we develop that empathy or whatever. So ideally, if we can have the super entitled brown kid generation, that's how we know we've won. Maybe.
uh, I
No,
think,
I'm
man,
simplifying it.
it's are we gonna breed a new generation that's gonna be doper than us?
I
Yeah,
hope so.
yeah, for sure. 100, man.
I
That's the
hope
goal.
so. I
You
mean,
know.
yeah, like I'm telling all my
Otherwise,
nephews,
I
play
wouldn't.
sports.
It's part of why I'm trying to do what I'm trying to do, and part of why Hassan's doing what he's doing, part of why Akash is doing what he's doing. You know. Um. So on every level, you see it of like
Yeah, no, I mean, and there's a general sense of wanting to achieve that aim or that goal, and then I find that that sometimes comes in clash with whatever you get caught up with, daily concerns or whatever, and where you're just like, whatever bubble or whatever community you might be in, the daily concerns of that sometimes may necessarily make you forget what that general aim or that kind of thing. So it's like a lot of these conversations I have, it's always nice to kind of check back in with your previous self and see what were the goals and ambitions there and what drove them. And a lot of times the thing that drove them was this sense of being otherized or stigmatized, growing up, making humor out of being randomly security checked, you know or being called a terrorist for the fire department thing. By the way, when I was in seventh grade, I accidentally pulled a fire alarm in a hotel, or like a sprinkler thing, and a few floors flooded, and they had to send me back from the field trip. And that was, thankfully, that was before 9/11, so I didn't get like terrorist stuff. But it was just like, I think it was just like, oh, love was doing water sports or something. So uh, either way, you can't win.
No, I have so many. Now that I think about it, you know,
Yo.
I try not to think about it.
I mean, that's a big central theme that we have here, is like the reason kind of for the tokenized fetishized segment is like, yo, I'll make you think about it before we record the episode, but people don't really necessarily do that. And then when we're on the episode, you start, when we're having this conversation, you start thinking back to different experiences you might have had as a kid, and you're like, yo, that shit was kind of racist, or yo, there were sexual undertones there that shouldn't have been there. And it's just like, oh, fuck. Why am I realizing this now as an adult? Ooh. And
Yeah,
I
I
feel like
mean,
that happens with all of us. Mhm.
it, I'm thankful for all the bullying and everything, bro. It made me who I am.
Same.
I don't think bullying is right now because now you get to get bullied all day. At least when I went home to my haven was my haven. You know,
That's
like
true.
these kids are online and they get to get bullied all day. That's not cool. So
That's
that's got to switch up. You know, um,
Yeah, man. Okay, last thing. Last thing. Remember Clock Kid? How did you feel about Clock Kid? The that Muslim kid in this was like a couple of 2-3 years ago.
oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he built like a clock, and then
What did he do? They
so
ended up.
so he built a clock.
No, I know. I remember
They
exactly what
called the
happened.
bomb squad or whatever. They took him away in cuffs, and then the whole thing was like, oh no. At first, the all the people online were just like, oh well, he could have been a terrorist. It was a threat, whatever. And then later on, it was like, no, well, obviously he wasn't a threat. And they're like, well, he's not even that smart. He was just making an already made set. It wasn't real ingenuity. He's not as smart as he says he is. Like it, the conversation immediately shifted. Dude, he's not as smart as he says he is, which is like, what the fuck? Like, is this kid?
I think his mother had to end up pulling him from the school.
Yeah, yeah,
That's right. That's what happened, right?
yeah. But I mean, you never heard the end of it online. Like, all of these like white dudes our age were just like talking about how this kid is. He's calling himself smart, but he's not really smart because he didn't really build it from scratch. He followed some directions, you know.
Yeah. But white people are offended uh how much we as a culture take to just knowledge, right? So they're offended by it, and they should be. They should really be offended by Japanese people, right? But I
Why?
think they just submitted to them because some Japanese people be on their shit with knowledge, bro.
By that
They
you
be
mean South Koreans?
South Koreans too.
Yeah, they.
South Koreans too. South Koreans and Japanese people are on their shit. They're just
Uh,
smart as shit, you
you ever
know?
been to Japan?
No, but I've met a bunch of the gamers from out there because they used to come for the tournaments, and I met a bunch of the South Korean StarCraft players too.
Yeah.
Smart as shit, you
Bro,
know.
you know what it's like? It like the one thing you notice in Japan, everybody that's doing whatever they do it with singular purpose, right? Like you'll see a doctor sweeping the street in front of his clinic because he's keeping it clean for presentation, right? Like there's none of this real like shift, which might be why the suicide rate's high, right? There's none of this like shifting of the blame for every single thing, and it's just like people have ownership of the things that they do, and I like that's like incredible to me, right? To like have purpose in your actions, in every action, and that implies that there's a general grand strategy to the things that you're
Yeah, it's
doing.
like eating one grain of rice at a time and shit. You know,
Yeah,
it's that shit.
making those tiny burgers
Yeah, it's that shit. That's what it is.
with a scalpel.
Okay, hold on, one story, and then yeah, let's end because my wife keeps texting me.
Yeah, no, I figured.
Uh, there was this girl on CNN, hijabi, promoting her makeup line, and then so she promoted her makeup line, and then they asked her about nuclear warheads,
That's so funny.
and she had an answer. That was the wildest part. The wildest part was she had something prepared.
Yo, that's like that dude Reza Aslan when they're asking talking about Christianity and Islam, and he's like, you know, I'm a scholar of all religions. Why are you talking to me about Islam constantly?
Dude, that shit was so funny to me that she knew to prepare a fucking answer, you know? Like,
That's fucking nuts. Yeah, because she can't look like a fool, and if she of course you can anticipate that CNN. Of
yeah.
course they're gonna ask you about that shit.
So,
They
the
don't need you
next
for
time,
your makeup.
yeah, just, I would say, I just want to know what the fuck does Kylie think about nuclear warheads? Have we asked her? She got the biggest makeup line in this bitch, right? Have we asked Rihanna? No, we've never asked her. We had this one fucking lowly hijabi, bro. She wouldn't have gotten on to promoter shit unless she knew who had what bombs, So it's like, just keep that in mind when you have to think about.
Yo, it's like the brown influencers speak about, international politics and stuff, and then the white politicians and international politicians speak about influencer stuff when they get at the end of their thing.
Yeah, it's shit is like, yeah, man. So I mean, they should be intimidated by that. Somebody who knows white people should be intimidated by somebody who knows makeup and nuclear warheads. They should be. And this,
They're gonna lock her up.
yeah, this is why they are intimidated. If you fucking are that on your shit all the time, you that woke. What the fuck? Who gonna fuck with you?
You're a threat.
You a threat. So yeah, she actually set us back by doing it. What's she doing by knowing so much? You know?
Play dumb,
Yeah,
cheery, and aloof.
down, girl. You don't gotta tell people.
Don't let them know we know.
Yeah, be like, I'm just a makeup girl. Like, like,
Yo, we gotta appropriate the Valley Girl accent.
oh yeah, you should have done straight Valley Girl bullshit.
That's why I add like 20 ums and uhs in every one of my speaking paragraphs.
So
Uh, but yeah, um, yeah, dude, great. Thanks for coming on. This is a good
of
episode.
course, man.
We got to
Yeah.
do it again, and we talk all the time, anyways, off screen. But we got to do another one on screen. Um,
Oh, for sure, bro. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, and we'll figure out the direction of all of this. But yeah, dog, Danish Maqbool, Where can they find you?
I'm on Instagram at DMac1,
At DMAC
DMAQ1.
All
Yeah.
right, cool. Yeah, and I mean
All right.
we'll put the thing out there and all that, and look forward to seeing all the things you do. So,
All right. For sure.
all right,
Appreciate y'all.
peace.
Return the jewels. All right.
All right.